Hello ladies and gentlemen, Panzer here, and welcome to Blue Rider. Now, first off, I want to preface this video by saying this. Now, every so often, you look at a game on, let's say, the store page. You look at it on the Steam store, you look at its promotional materials, and you really quite like the look of the game. And when it comes out, you do hope that it's as good as you think it is. This is one game that I really hoped I would like, because I like the art style. And unfortunately, it is completely unbearable to play. Now, if you're a person who suffers from motion sickness, this is probably going to set you off. Because while my frame rate counter will say that this runs at 60, it very, very obviously doesn't. And I'm going to explain why by just showing you the game. Now, what is it? It's a sort of level-based bullet hell shooter in the style of Assault Android Cactus, but it's not as polished as Cactus is. Assault Android Cactus is probably one of my favorite in this sort of game because of just how tight the controls are and how, well, fun it is to play. This is quite the opposite of that. So, here we go. Now, you won't notice it immediately, but this game suffers from pretty bad micro-stuttering. In other words, the frame rate does appear to be 60, but it drops by half a frame to 1 frame a second at very random intervals. And I've noticed this is actually related to the performance of the game. You can even see it happening right now. At first I thought this was screen tearing, but no, it's not. As I move forward and back, you can actually see this. Just look at the landscape around it. I hope the video is actually capturing this, because you can actually see it. It is actually stuttering. And then we get onto the camera controls as I pan left and right. It has this sort of very shaky motion to it, almost like lazy cam. So, and it's worse if you go left and right, like this. Left and right. You can see how much delay there really is. Not good. At the same time as well, aiming in this game. Now, there's no crosshair, so you're relying entirely on the bullets, or the movement of your projectiles, in order to aim the weapon. So, something like that. Now, in a game where the aiming is a little bit floaty, right? As I'm moving the mouse around, there is a slight delay in the movement of the ship. I don't know if it's input lag, or whether that's just an issue with the game, or how the game is supposed to control, because you are in a hovering ship. You are the Blue Rider, as the name states. But you really just have to deal with that sort of slight little bit of floatiness there, which is not ideal. You can see even the movements there, it sort of drifts a little bit to the side. I know that's intentional, it's more of a stylistic choice rather than, you know, a functional one. I would have liked to be able to control the ship a little bit more precisely than that, considering you have to do, in some cases, especially in the boss fight at the end of this level, you have to do some pretty precise movements. So you might notice the enemies are a little bit more durable than you might expect in these sorts of games, and that's because they really emphasize this idea of collecting upgrades, and the building to my left in blue over there is one such upgrade. By destroying it, we get an upgrade to our primary weapon. Oh god, that sound effect. So, the sounds in this game, that's the main weapon. Those are the engines, and there's explosion effects, and there's even bombs. I'm just going to demonstrate one right now. These are limited use. They fire 3 at a time, and you have 3 at the beginning of the map, and you start and you can pick up more along the way. All of the sounds sort of have this weird hiss in them, almost as though they're running at a very strange compression level. I'm not sure entirely what it is. It sounds a little bit like interference. I'm not sure if this is coming through my audio interface, but I've reset it several times to try and clear that up. So, I mean, if the developers are watching this and know what's going on, then apologies, of course, if I'm wrong about that, but it really does just sound Like there's some sort of interference going on to me, which isn't really helping, especially when the power-up effects, which I can demonstrate right now, are just a little bit too sharp. It kind of hurt the ears a little bit, so I've actually had to turn the volume down to compensate for that. We've got a slightly different sound effect now. The micro-stuttering is still there. Oh god, it's getting worse, I think. The more enemies you have on the screen, which in this sort of game is likely to happen, the worse the stutter gets. To the point where some enemies, I've noticed, cause the frame rate to dip down to 30 or even sub 30 when they explode. In fact, you can see a little bit of that happening right now, actually. That's not a nice sound. So maybe I'm being overly negative because I wanted to like the game. I mean, the art style is really nice, and I like the idea of these sort of bullet hell shooters. I actually enjoy playing them. Might not be particularly good at them, but I do enjoy playing them. I mean, you give me Nuclear Throne, or you give me Assault Android Cactus, I'll play them. Because that's the sort of games I do actually enjoy. But there's a difference between this and those games in that they have quite a number of things done well that this doesn't. One being the controls is very style over substance. Yes, it's supposed to be a hovering ship, so it has that little bit of a drift to it. But the thing is, you really don't want to be fighting the ship. Like, if I need to strafe left and right very quickly, I have to compensate for that delay. And in some cases, it's really not possible. Especially when the bosses, like the ones coming up right now, like such as this boss, are going to start firing lots of bullets out that you are going to need to dodge. Now, this boss is a little bit easy, of course. You can actually just beat them. What on earth is that? Oh, those are the scorch marks on the ground. I thought that was actually shadow errors or something. But yeah, you can dodge most of those attacks by just simply circle strafing him. And I'm playing this with a keyboard and mouse, mind you, and it does actually have controller support, but I would probably recommend playing with a controller simply because of these sorts of movements. It's much easier than having to continuously reposition a mouse to compensate for it. I still do have some bombs left, actually, now I think about it. Now, our ammo and upgrades, or rather the bombs actually that we have, so I have used all of them up, but if you have any left, and you have weapon upgrades as well, they carry over to the next, I just got killed there, they carry over to the next level, so if you don't die, like I just did there, you'd carry on to the next one. So, yeah. So, I mean, there's not much else really to show. I mean, this is... I do believe we still have one of our upgrades on. I don't think that's supposed to happen. I can't tell anymore. But yeah, I can see what they're trying to go for, and I really appreciate that they tried to do it. I mean, props to the developers for attempting to make this sort of game. It's a good effort. And it's a novel concept. I like the art. It's very sort of cartoon cel-shaded, with a little bit of a sort of Advance Wars vibe almost, in terms of the character designs. I like that. But the game just gives me a headache to play, honestly. The MICROSTUTTER gives you that, especially when combined with the lazy cam effect from turning the ship left and right. Really just is motion sickness inducing. And I'm not even somebody who suffers from motion sickness, and it's giving me a headache. Like, it's actually giving me eye strain. So, yeah. This is not ideal. And really, a game like this, considering that it's not exactly high poly or high fidelity, shouldn't really have an excuse to run like this. I mean, it should be a solid 60, but it's not. It very clearly isn't. There's stuttering all over the place. And performance is just my biggest gripe with this, because it is really affecting the gameplay and really hindering what could otherwise be a pretty decent game. And those sound effects need to change. I'm sorry, but I really can't tolerate those sound effects right now. Not when the game's already giving me a headache. So, yeah, there's not much else to really say about this. It's a good effort, but unfortunately it really, really needs work. And in case you're wondering, no, it's not a hardware issue, because this game is currently being played on a machine that is running an i7 2600 as well as a GTX 970. So I can run Just Cause 3 on Ultra. I don't see why I would be running a game like this at anything less than 60. Or anything less than a solid 60. It just isn't acceptable, in my opinion. Yeah, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is Blue Rider. I'm gonna leave it here before I really make myself sick. I've still got more videos to record, more games to be put on the channel over the coming days, so stay tuned for that. This has been Panzer taking a look at Blue Rider. It's available on Steam, and if you have no issues with motion sickness, or if the developers eventually introduce VSync and get rid of the MICROSTUTTER, it might actually be playable. And maybe fix those sound effects. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.